Hello and welcome to Tete, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is Husam Zomlot. He is the Palestinian ambassador to the United Kingdom, and he joins us from Bournemouth. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
The war in Gaza is entering its 6th month. The death toll now reaches 33,000 people. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the war would last several years. Do you agree with him, or do you see an end in sight?
Of course, I don't agree with him, but I see that he wants to actually do that. He wants to have a perpetual war, an unending, never-ending war for personal reasons, because he knows the moment the war ends, it's the end of his own career. And also for the strategic interests of his government and the Israeli establishment to finish off a job they started 76 years ago, which is the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, they turning our territories into areas unlivable, and the instrumentalization of this moment for actually the final push. That's why you have had Israel doing what it did in the last 6 months. If you asked me at the beginning of this aggression, how long will it take? I wouldn't have imagined we will get to April and still this aggression is ongoing. But of course, Israel has a free hand. There were no consequences. The world was unable to do anything. Western complicity and green lighting the Israeli genocidal aggression has also been interpreted in Israel as a carte blanche to do what they wish. And you've followed only in the last few days Israel murdering 7 aid workers. 3 of them are British citizens. Even no condemnation from the UK or from the US or anywhere. Only calling for Israel to investigate its own murder, which is really almost like inviting the wolf to judge on what happened to the lamb. Nonetheless, this is a business that has been going for a long time. Israel been brought above the law, the exception to every rule, full impunity by key Western countries and governments. And this is a time when Gaza has unmasked many things, unmasked the hypocrisy, the double standards, the selectivity of the West. And therefore, yes, Netanyahu wants not only to drag this war forever, for as long as he can, but he wants to expand this war. And you have followed that now Israel is bombing Lebanon, bombing Damascus, Syria, and they are absolutely adamantly insisting to spread this war so it becomes much more interactive. This is a government that is bending on conflict right now and using the moment to actually kill as many Palestinians and ethnically cleanse Palestinians. And by the way, not just in Gaza. Of course, the most intense situation in Gaza, there is genocide being committed in Gaza. Food and disease is used as a weapon of war, but also in the West Bank. The numbers in the West Bank, the situation there is absolutely staggering. I mean, you have more than 1,500 Palestinians being depopulated from 14 communities in Hebron. So the same design, the same execution, both in the West Bank and Gaza.
Is Netanyahu waiting for Donald Trump to come back to the White House?
Well, he doesn't need to wait, because even the Biden administration didn't really enforce on Netanyahu anything. Nothing. I mean, there are no consequences. Only last week, the U.S. has approved a weapons sale of $18 billion. I mean, this is in the middle of a genocide. After the International Court of Justice came out and said Israel is officially now on trial of genocide because the case against it brought by South Africa is plausible that Israel is committing genocide. After all that has happened, and still the U.S. is providing Israel with the very weapons that allows Israel to commit the genocide. So I'm not so sure if Netanyahu wants to wait for anything. He's got it right now.
This week, you alluded to it, we saw the killing of 7 aid workers, a Palestinian, an Australian, a Pole, a dual US-Canada citizen, and 3 Brits from the NGO World Central Kitchen. This prompted criticism from Israel's closest ally. Joe Biden said he was outraged. Rishi Sunak said he was appalled. Israel has apologized. However, the founder of World Central Kitchen, Jose Andres, countered that according to him, this strike is not a mistake, as Israel claims. He is accusing Israel of targeting his aid workers, quote unquote, systematically, car by car. This is a very serious accusation. What do you make of it?
It's not an accusation. It's not an accusation. This is a fact. What he said is a fact. The way Israel murdered these aid workers is very deliberate. And they tried to escape, they tried to hide, they didn't strike all of them at the beginning, and they went after them 3 strikes and until they murdered all of them. So this could not be in any way or shape unintended, as Israel
But what's
claimed.
the purpose of it?
It's very clear: enforcing, implementing a famine. That's it. They started by targeting local NGOs distributing food. Then people, innocent civilians who are waiting to get food, are murdered. And you've seen hundreds waiting for food have been shot by Israeli snipers. And now international aid workers are being murdered because Israel is set on imposing a famine as a tool for actually turning Gaza lifeless, as a tool of the genocide. Do I need to give you the numbers? We haven't been following what the World Health Organization is saying, World Food Program is saying, all international organizations are saying now the north of Gaza is officially in a situation of famine at level 5. So what happened was intended to make sure that famine is enforced.
Do you think that the fact that those aid workers, some of them were Western aid workers, nearly 200 died, the vast majority of them being Palestinian, but as a result that this could prompt, if not the US, at least some European countries to take some steps, for example, if not stop, at least curtail the sale of weapons to Israel, and maybe prompt what could be symbolic, but nevertheless, the recognition of Palestine as a state?
Well, arms embargo should have happened long ago, long before the last 6 months. Arms embargo is a responsibility of various states, contracting parties of the international system, like the UK and the US, when the country they are exporting arms to is violating international law. And it is absolutely beyond doubt. It has proven over the years that Israel has violated the very basis of our human values, universal values, and of course, indeed, international law. But in the last 6 months, I mean, if you do not impose an arms embargo during a genocide, if a genocide doesn't warrant an arms embargo, what does, Mark? What does? And yes, indeed, the murder of the 7 aid workers is a tragedy and should be condemned. But it's not just about the 7 aid workers. It's about the almost 200 Palestinian and international aid workers that have been killed. It's about the more than 100 journalists, your colleagues, that have been killed. It's about your profession, the media, who have been prevented from accessing Gaza, as you know very well, or covering Gaza. France 24 doesn't have crews on the ground in Gaza. That's an Israeli decision. And now the last remaining media outlet, media channel, that is Al Jazeera, is being shut down by Israel because they want to commit the genocide and the atrocities in the dark. So this is a pattern. However, even when the murder of their own citizens, the UK, the US, and the other Western governments, they fail to condemn it. They said they are appalled, they are saddened, they are shocked, but they didn't condemn. And they did not use the tools available for them to actually make sure that such criminalities have consequences. And these are sanctions. And not just, by the way, arms embargo. Sanctions has a long list, including suspending Israel's UN membership until it abides by international resolutions, including the last UN Security Council resolution that called for an immediate ceasefire. And since that resolution, Israel has actually doubled down. It has doubled down on the murder of Palestinians. It has doubled down on the imposing of famine. It has doubled down on the prevention of humanitarian aid and assistance. It has doubled down on the destruction of Palestinian houses, infrastructure, hospitals. You've seen what happened to the Shifa hospital. All that was after the UN Security Council resolution. So today, the question, Mark, the major question is not what Israel is doing, because what Israel is doing is absolutely bluntly clear. It is committing genocide, and it is using food disease, and what have you as weapons of war. And genocide is the crime of all crimes. The question is why the world, particularly the Western governments, are making Israel the exception. That's the only question. What is it? What is it? Even when it comes to their own citizens, like the 3 British citizens. Is it racism? Is it colonialism and still the colonial mentality? Is it strategic aims at controlling the region? What is it? Is it media and the lack of knowledge among the public? But now you can see that the Western public are much aware and much more supportive of the Palestinian rights. There are questions to be asked, not about what Israel is doing. No. What the rest of the world is doing.
Well,
Why Israel has made the exception.
just as a last question, a more personal question. I know this is a deeply personal issue for you, since I understand 8 of your relatives who were sheltering in Rafah, at the southern tip of the Gaza Strip, were killed in an Israeli strike in mid-February. One of them is 7-year-old Sidra Hassouni, who is your wife's cousin, and she was seen, sadly, in a gruesome picture widely circulated. How deeply do you feel about this personally?
Well, not just about this, and not only my wife's family. It's my only side, my side's family that have been affected. There is no one family in Gaza that has not been affected, targeted. Members of the family killed, not one family, and that's how you know it's a genocide, because every family is affected, and I do feel a sense of inability to protect these children, inability to do something about it, especially that we are diplomats and supposed to affect this world, particularly where we are in the West, in London, and before it in Washington. There is that feeling, but that tells you, I was reading a report just before I came into this interview that Israel is using artificial intelligence to kill these children that you've just shown, our children. They have designated 37,000 targets. Can you imagine in Gaza? Homes, houses, via AI. It's almost like these Israeli teenagers are having video games, but the only difference, it's about real people in real time.
Husam Zomlot, I want to thank you very much for appearing here on Tete, France 24's flagship interview show from Bournemouth in the United Kingdom.